Tuning is a way to organize sound into a structure that we can use to make music. Sound is produced by regular vibrations moving through the air at a certain speed or frequency. The faster these vibrations are, the higher the sound or pitch, and vice versa. So when we double the frequency of these vibrations, we produce the same sound, but an octave higher. The way we organize all the sounds between these two sounds is what we call tuning systems. Different intervals between notes either sound good, known as consonant, or they clash and sound bad, which we refer to as dissonant. And this had to do between the ratios of these vibrations. Of course, defining a sound as good or bad is based on perception and sociocultural conventions. Different cultures and time periods have had different approaches to tuning. However, throughout history, establishing tuning conventions was essential for different instrument makers to make instruments that could play together. Similarly, the names we give to specific frequencies or notes have changed throughout history. But it's very important. In the early days, the sound that we call today A was slightly different in different places, often based in the sound of a church organ to which all other instruments in the locality were tuned to. Visiting musicians had to adapt their pitch, and sometimes that's just not possible. Therefore, we had to find consensus, and nowadays, in the so-called Western world, we have reached the agreement that A is equivalent to 440 Hz. That is a sound that is produced by making vibrate the air 440 times per second. We have also reached the convention of dividing the octave in 12 sections or semitones, hence the 12 keys between two Cs on normal keyboard. Though some experimental scales with more or fewer notes have also been tried. Different ways of tuning are called temperaments and can make a big difference to how a piece of music sounds. When tuning a harpsichord or a clavichord, we have to keep these small differences in mind and make sure we are choosing the right temperament for the right period and geographical area in which it was placed. And of course, there is a variation in the sound of repertoires depending on this temperament. Similarly, with A, we need to decide which A we're using, depending on the time period. When tuning a string instrument, like a guitar, we can change its pitch by stretching the strings with the tuning pegs. Or we can change the notes by shortening the string length, usually done by stopping the string against the fret with a finger. Similarly, in wind instruments, the pitch changes by lengthening or shortening the length of the air duct. That is usually done by making perforations to the body of the instruments, like a recorder, so the air can escape. Those perforations are then stopped with the fingers, so we can control how long this pipe is. On brass instruments, like a trumpet, instead of perforations, we find valves that open or close to let the air go through additional section of piping, making the air travel longer distance and then changing the pitch. Now let me show you how I tune one of the harpsichords in our collection. I start by tuning A to the right pitch. Remember, A has changed slightly in different places and different time periods, so in a historic collection like ours, I need to make sure that I have the right A for the right instruments that I'm tuning. Then, I tune an octave based on that first A by tuning different notes to each other to get the right pitch. You can hear the beats of the sound waves when the notes are not perfectly in tune. And as they get closer, the speed of these beats becomes lower until they match. And that is when we say those two notes are in tune. Listen to this. I'm gonna get it a slightly out of tune so you can hear the difference. And now they're on tune. The next step is tuning the other octaves by matching the notes that I tuned before. And then I repeat the same process throughout different keyboards and the different sets of strings in the same instrument. At St. Cecilia's Hall, we have many playable instruments. They come from different periods and places, and it's our responsibility to keep them in good condition for future generations. And part of this is making sure they are tuned using the right kind of temperament and pitch.